Tonight, you'll discover why some medieval patients feared their doctors more than their illnesses, why a headache could lead to blood pouring into a wooden bowl, and how one desperate cure involved swallowing ingredients you would never expect to find inside medicine. Dim the lights, settle into your blankets, and let the worries of today drift quietly away. Tonight, we're traveling back to medieval Europe, into candlelit homes, stone monasteries, and crowded market towns where sickness was mysterious, doctors were rare, and medicine often hurt far more than it healed. This isn't a story of brave knights or mighty castles. It's a story about ordinary people trying very hard to survive. So close your eyes, take a slow breath, and let history gently carry you toward sleep. Tonight, imagine that you have awakened with a pounding fever in a busy medieval market town. Your body feels strangely heavy, your skin is warm to the touch, and every breath seems just a little more difficult than the last. There is no pharmacy around the corner, no ambulance to call, and certainly no bottle of antibiotics waiting on a bedside table. Instead, your family quietly agrees that it is time to send for the physician. They hope he arrives before the illness grows any worse. As you wait, the room remains almost perfectly still. A small fire crackles in the hearth, casting gentle orange light across rough wooden walls. Outside, the narrow streets are damp from yesterday's rain, and somewhere in the distance a church bell marks another passing hour. Life continues as usual beyond your little cottage, yet inside, every minute feels uncertain. When the physician finally arrives, he doesn't begin by asking the questions a modern doctor might ask. Instead, he carefully studies your face. He watches how you breathe. He feels your wrist for your pulse, believing that every heartbeat whispers clues about what is happening inside your body. Then he asks for something that might seem rather unusual today, a small flask containing your urine. To medieval physicians, urine was almost like a window into the human body. They examined its color, its smell, and even how clear or cloudy it appeared. Some doctors carried beautifully illustrated charts filled with shades of yellow, amber, brown, and pale gold, each color believed to reveal a different illness. To them, this careful observation was real medicine, built upon centuries of learning passed from teacher to student. After several quiet moments, the physician gently nods. He believes he understands the problem. According to the medical knowledge of the time, your body contains too much blood. Not simply blood as we understand it today, but one of the 4 essential humors that were believed to control every aspect of health. When these humors fell out of balance, sickness followed. The solution, surprisingly, was not to add medicine. It was to remove blood. A wooden bowl is placed beneath your arm. The physician unwraps a small, sharpened blade, polished from years of careful use. There is no anesthesia to dull what comes next. The room grows silent. Even your family stops speaking. With one quick motion, the blade opens a vein. Dark red blood begins to flow steadily into the waiting bowl. The physician watches carefully, convinced that each drop carries the illness away with it. He knows exactly how much blood he believes should be removed, although those measurements vary greatly from one doctor to another. Some patients leave feeling lighter. Others become dangerously weak. Yet for hundreds of years, bloodletting remained one of Europe's most trusted medical treatments. For those who feared the blade, another familiar helper often appeared: leeches. Small, dark creatures gathered from ponds and marshes were considered valuable medical tools. A physician might gently place several leeches onto swollen skin and patiently wait as they attached themselves. Their tiny bites were surprisingly painless at first, and before long they quietly began drawing blood. To a medieval patient, this strange sight inspired both hope and discomfort. Watching small creatures slowly feed from your arm was hardly pleasant, yet many believed the treatment was safer than opening a vein with steel. In fact, leeches remained part of medical practice for centuries, and rather remarkably, certain modern surgeons still use specially raised medical leeches today to improve blood circulation after delicate operations. It is one of the rare medieval treatments that never completely disappeared. Not every remedy, however, has earned such a lasting reputation. Imagine suffering from a terrible toothache. The pain has kept you awake for several nights, and eating has become almost impossible. At last, you gather enough courage to visit the local barber. Yes, the barber. In medieval Europe, the person who trimmed beards and cut hair often performed minor surgeries as well. Hanging outside many shops was the familiar striped pole, a symbol that originally represented blood-stained bandages wrapped around a staff after bloodletting procedures. The barber examines the aching tooth for only a few moments. There are no x-rays, no numbing injections, no gentle explanation of what is about to happen. Instead, he reaches for a heavy pair of iron forceps. You grip the wooden chair with both hands. The room feels impossibly quiet. Then, with a swift pull, the tooth is removed. The pain is sudden, sharp, and unforgettable. If everything goes well, the worst is soon over. But if infection follows, there is very little anyone can do except hope the body heals on its own. Some treatments seemed even harsher. Deep wounds from accidents or battle were sometimes burned with red-hot irons. Physicians believed intense heat could stop bleeding and prevent corruption from spreading through the flesh. The smell of burning skin filled the room while assistants held the patient still. It was agonizing, yet many healers sincerely believed they were giving someone the best possible chance to survive. Then there were medicines designed to force illness out of the body. If someone suffered from stomach pain, dizziness, or an unexplained fever, doctors might prescribe powerful mixtures that caused vomiting or severe diarrhea. These remedies were meant to cleanse the body by removing harmful substances hidden within. The experience itself was exhausting, but if the patient survived, any improvement was often credited to the treatment. Perhaps the most mysterious procedure of all was something called trepanation. Long before the medieval period, and continuing into parts of the Middle Ages, some surgeons carefully drilled or scraped a small opening into the skull. Today, that idea sounds almost impossible to imagine. Yet people believed it could relieve unbearable headaches, treat certain injuries, or even release harmful pressures trapped inside the head. Without modern anesthesia or antiseptics, it was an extraordinarily risky operation. And yet archaeological discoveries show that some patients lived for many years afterward, their skulls healing around the carefully made opening. It is a quiet reminder that even the most astonishing procedures sometimes had unexpected outcomes. As the evening settles over the town, our feverish merchant lies quietly beneath a thick wool blanket. The bowl used for bloodletting has been carried away. The physician has packed his instruments and disappeared into the fatting light, already making his way toward another waiting patient. The merchant closes his tired eyes. He doesn't know whether the treatment has saved his life or simply left him weaker than before. All he can do now is rest, trust the knowledge of his time, and hope that when the morning sun rises above the rooftops, his fever will finally begin to fade. The first hint of morning has not yet reached the horizon when you slowly open your eyes. The world outside is still wrapped in darkness, and for a brief moment, everything feels peaceful. Then the ache returns. Your head feels unusually heavy. Every muscle in your body protests as you try to move beneath the coarse wool blanket. Your skin is hot with fever, yet the air inside the cottage is so cold that your breath appears in faint white clouds. It is a strange feeling, shivering while your body burns. Nearby, a small fire struggles to stay alive inside the stone hearth. Thin ribbons of gray smoke drift lazily across the room before finding their way toward a tiny opening in the roof. The scent of burning oak mixes with damp straw, old timber, and yesterday's bread. It is the familiar smell of home, comforting on most mornings, but somehow different today. The cottage itself is simple. Its walls are made from rough wooden beams packed with clay. The floor is bare earth, uneven from years of footsteps. A single narrow window lets in very little light, and every draft of cold air slips easily through the tiny gaps between the boards. There are no soft mattresses or warm radiators here. Only wooden furniture worn smooth by generations of careful hands. Your family notices almost immediately that something is wrong. Your mother gently places the back of her hand against your forehead before quietly exchanging worried glances with the others. Your father says very little, but you can see concern written across his tired face. Even the youngest children, usually laughing before sunrise, whisper instead of speaking aloud. No one truly understands what has caused the illness. Was it spoiled food, bad air drifting through the village, and imbalance inside the body, or perhaps something only God could explain? In the Middle Ages, sickness often arrived without warning, and its causes remain mysterious. One person might recover after only a few days, while another living in the very same house could grow steadily weaker. Every fever carried uncertainty, and uncertainty was often the most frightening part of all. There is no nearby hospital where trained doctors wait behind bright lights and clean white walls. There are no emergency rooms filled with modern equipment, no bottles of antibiotics, no tablets to ease the pain. Even something as ordinary as a thermometer has not yet been invented. Instead, someone quietly pulls on a heavy wool cloak and steps outside into the chilly morning. Their destination is the home of the village healer. The journey may take an hour, perhaps longer, depending on where the healer happens to be that day. Sometimes they are already helping another family. Sometimes they are gathering herbs deep within nearby forests or tending plants in a monastery garden. Patience is simply part of receiving care. Inside the cottage, the waiting feels endless. Your family keeps the fire burning while someone gently offers you small sips of water. Another folds an extra blanket around your shoulders. Hopping warmth alone might chase the fever away. Every now and then, someone quietly looks toward the door, listening for approaching footsteps. Time passes slowly. The silence grows heavier. Finally, sometime after the sun has climbed above the rooftops, the wooden door creaks open. The healer has arrived. Their clothing is plain but practical, weathered by years of walking from village to village. Hanging from a leather belt are several small cloth pouches tied with faded string. Each contains dried herbs gathered during different seasons of the year. Bundles of sage, mint, thyme, yarrow, and rosemary release faint earthy scents as the healer sets them carefully upon the table. Alongside the herbs are tiny jars filled with powders whose ingredients are known only through generations of tradition. Some have been copied from ancient medical books. Others were taught by parents and grandparents long before anyone thought to write them down. The healer speaks softly, asking simple questions. When did the fever begin? Have you eaten? Can you stand? Does your chest hurt when you breathe? Each answer is considered thoughtfully. There are no laboratory tests to confirm a diagnosis. Observation, experience, and instinct are the healer's greatest tools. Around the room, your family watches every movement with quiet hope. No one interrupts. No one questions the treatment. In difficult times like these, medicine is more than knowledge. It is reassurance. It is the comforting belief that someone has arrived who might know what to do, even if the cure itself is uncomfortable. Before preparing any remedy, your family gathers together for prayer. A small wooden cross hangs upon the wall, illuminated by the dancing firelight. Heads bow respectfully. Quiet voices fill the room with familiar words repeated countless times across generations. They pray for healing, for strength, and for mercy. Faith and medicine are not separate worlds here. They exist side by side. Many people believe that herbs may ease the body while prayer comforts the soul. Together, they offer the best chance of recovery anyone can imagine. Soon, the healer begins preparing a simple drink. Fresh sage is crushed beneath a smooth stone. Mint leaves are added for their cooling scent. Honey softens the bitterness, while warm water from the hearth blends everything together into a fragrant herbal infusion. Not every medieval remedy was without value. Modern researchers have discovered that several herbs commonly used during the Middle Ages contained natural compounds that truly could soothe sore throats, calm upset stomachs, or help clean minor wounds. The healers did not understand bacteria or viruses, but through centuries of careful observation, they sometimes stumbled upon treatments that genuinely offered comfort. Still, uncertainty never disappears. If one member of the household has become ill, everyone wonders who might be next. Children are quietly told not to share cups. Neighbors hesitate before visiting. Market stalls grow unusually quiet whenever rumors of sickness begin spreading through the village. News travels quickly, and fear often travels even faster. Some illnesses pass without leaving lasting harm. Others move silently from one family to another, touching nearly every home before finally fading away. No one knows which kind of illness this will become. As evening slowly approaches once again, the herbal drink has been finished, the prayers have been spoken, and the healer has packed away the little cloth pouches. Now there is nothing left to do except wait. The fire continues to crackle softly. The wind brushes gently against the wooden walls. Your family remains close beside you, hoping that by tomorrow morning the fever will begin to loosen its grip. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. And in medieval Europe, that uncertainty was perhaps the hardest part of all. By now, your fever has eased just enough for you to notice the gentle sounds of the village outside. Somewhere beyond the wooden walls, a rooster announces the afternoon. A cart rolls slowly over the uneven road, its wooden wheels creaking with every turn. Life, somehow, continues as it always has. The healer has advised that you remain in bed, keep warm, and follow a very careful diet. To someone living in the 21st century, that advice might sound surprisingly simple. But in medieval Europe, food was not only something that filled the stomach. It was believed to be medicine. Most physicians of the Middle Ages followed an ancient idea first developed many centuries earlier by Greek scholars. They believed the human body was governed by four invisible substances known as the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. According to this theory, every person's health depended on keeping these four humors in perfect balance. When one became too strong or too weak, illness appeared. A fever, for example, was often thought to mean the body had become too hot. The solution, therefore, was to restore balance through food, drink, and careful treatment. The idea may sound unusual today, but for hundreds of years it shaped nearly every medical decision across Europe. Imagine the healer sitting beside the fire, quietly explaining what you should and should not eat. Rich roasted meat is forbidden for now because it is believed to create too much heat within the body. Instead, you are offered a warm bowl of barley porridge, soft bread soaked in broth, perhaps a little cooked onion or cabbage, fresh water if it can be found clean enough to drink. Nothing too heavy, nothing too spicy. Everything is chosen with one purpose: to help your body return to harmony. Even the seasons were believed to influence health. Winter was considered cold and damp, while summer brought heat and dryness. Physicians often adjusted their treatments according to the time of year, believing that nature itself affected the balance inside every person. Medicine was never simply about treating one illness. It was about understanding the relationship between the human body and the world around it. Many healers also relied upon the remarkable gardens found inside monasteries. Hidden behind quiet stone walls, monks carefully grew dozens of medicinal plants. Their gardens were filled with the soothing fragrance of lavender, the fresh scent of mint, and the earthy aroma of sage. Rows of rosemary, fennel, chamomile, and thyme stretched neatly beneath the open sky. These gardens were more than places of beauty. They were living pharmacies. Generation after generation, monks copied ancient medical books by hand, preserving knowledge that might otherwise have disappeared forever. They experimented carefully with herbs, recorded their observations, and shared remedies with nearby communities. If a traveler arrived weak from a long journey, the monastery might offer shelter. If a child developed a cough, herbal teas could be prepared. If someone suffered from a small wound, honey was often spread across the injury before it was wrapped in clean linen. Modern science has shown that honey naturally helps slow the growth of certain bacteria. Garlic contains compounds that can fight some microorganisms. Mint may soothe an upset stomach, while willow bark contains ingredients related to the pain-relieving medicines developed centuries later. Without realizing exactly why these plants worked, medieval healers occasionally discovered remedies that truly offered relief. Of course, not every treatment was successful. Some herbs had little effect at all. Others were mixed with ingredients that did far more harm than good. Yet the people preparing these medicines rarely intended to cause suffering. They genuinely believed they were helping their neighbors using the best knowledge available to them. As afternoon slowly fades toward evening, sunlight filters through the tiny window, painting soft golden lines across the earthen floor. Your family quietly prepares a simple supper while you remain resting beneath your blankets. The herbal drink has left a pleasant warmth in your chest. Your fever no longer feels quite as fierce as it did before sunrise. Perhaps the remedy is beginning to work, or perhaps your own body is slowly overcoming the illness on its own. No one can say for certain. The healer cannot promise tomorrow will be better. Your family cannot know what the coming night will bring. All anyone can do is wait. Keep the fire burning. Offer another cup of warm herbs. And hope that when morning arrives once again, your strength will have quietly returned. In a world without microscopes, hospitals, or modern medicine, hope itself was often one of the most powerful remedies people possessed. As the afternoon slowly slips toward evening, the village begins to settle into its familiar rhythm. Smoke rises gently from chimneys. Chickens wander across muddy paths, pecking at the ground without much concern for the world around them. Somewhere nearby, the steady ring of a blacksmith's hammer echoes through the cool air. Inside the marketplace, however, another craftsman is just finishing his day's work, a barber. He has trimmed beards, cut hair, and exchanged cheerful conversations with nearly everyone who passed through his small wooden shop. But if you were living in medieval Europe, his work might not end there. The very same hands that carefully shaped a gentleman's beard could also pull a painful tooth, drain an abscess, or perform a small surgical procedure. Today, it sounds like an unusual combination of professions. Back then, it was perfectly ordinary. Imagine a man named Thomas, a hardworking merchant who has spent weeks traveling from town to town with a cart full of cloth and spices. For several days, a sharp pain has been growing inside one of his back teeth. At first, he ignores it, hoping it will disappear on its own. Instead, it grows worse. Soon, even chewing a piece of soft bread becomes almost unbearable. Sleep is nearly impossible. The ache spreads into his jaw, then into his ear, until every heartbeat seems to send another wave of pain through his face. Finally, with little choice left, Thomas makes his way to the barber's shop. The room smells faintly of soap, damp wood, and freshly sharpened steel. Sunlight streams through the doorway, catching tiny specks of dust floating lazily in the air. Along one wall hangs an assortment of scissors, razors, and heavy iron instruments whose purpose is immediately obvious. The barber studies the aching tooth for only a moment. There are no x-rays, no bright examination lights, no sterile gloves, no gentle numbing injection to make the procedure comfortable. Instead, Thomas is handed a thick piece of leather to bite down on. A sturdy wooden chair is pulled closer. Two strong assistants quietly step forward, not because they expect trouble, but because experience has taught them that even the bravest person may instinctively pull away at the worst possible moment. The barber grips the tooth firmly with a pair of iron forceps. For one long, silent second, no one moves. Then, with one powerful pull, the tooth comes free. The entire procedure lasts only a few moments. Its memory, however, may last a lifetime. If the extraction is successful, Thomas leaves relieved despite the lingering pain. If the tooth breaks or infection follows, there is very little anyone can do except clean the wound, offer herbal remedies, and hope nature finishes what the barber has begun. It required remarkable courage simply to sit in that chair. Not every treatment depended upon blades or herbs. Many people also carried small charms wherever they traveled. Some wore tiny crosses carved from wood. Others kept small cloth pouches containing written prayers or carefully chosen stones believed to offer protection against illness. These objects were not seen as magical tricks, but as comforting reminders of faith and hope during uncertain times. When sickness lingered for weeks or even months, some families made long pilgrimages to famous holy places. The journey itself could take many days. Travelers crossed forests, rivers, and rolling countryside, believing that reaching a sacred shrine might bring healing that ordinary medicine could not provide. For many, the pilgrimage offered something just as valuable as physical treatment. It offered hope. Along the way, they met others carrying similar burdens: parents worried about sick children, elderly travelers seeking relief from painful joints, and families praying for one more healthy season together. Inside great churches and monasteries, certain relics were believed to possess healing power. These relics might be fragments of clothing connected to a saint, small pieces of bone, or objects associated with deeply respected religious figures. Pilgrims often stood quietly before them, whispering prayers and asking for comfort. Whether healing came through faith, coincidence, or natural recovery was impossible to know. But the comfort these places offered was undeniably real. Some remedies, however, seem far stranger to modern eyes. Ancient medical books described ointments made from combinations of herbs, oils, animal fat, beeswax, and occasionally ingredients collected from animals themselves. Different creatures were believed to possess different healing qualities. Sometimes these mixtures were spread across wounds. Other times they were applied to swollen joints or aching muscles. While a few ingredients may have soothed the skin, others likely did very little at all. Still, each recipe represented generations of observation, tradition, and sincere belief. Perhaps the most mysterious influence on medieval medicine came not from the earth, but from the sky. On clear evenings, physicians sometimes looked upward before deciding how or when to begin treatment. The stars, the planets, and the moon were believed to influence the human body just as they influence the tides and the changing seasons. Some medical books included detailed drawings connecting each zodiac sign with different parts of the body. Aries governed the head. Taurus watched over the neck. Pisces ruled the feet. If a patient required bloodletting, certain physicians preferred to avoid performing the procedure when the moon appeared in the zodiac sign connected with the part of the body being treated. They believed the heavens offered guidance that careful doctors should respect. To us, astrology belongs largely to entertainment or personal belief. To many educated people of the Middle Ages, however, it formed part of the natural order of the universe. Universities even taught aspects of astronomy and astrology alongside medicine because the subjects were thought to complement one another. Healing was never viewed as a single discipline. It was woven together from careful observation. Ancient writings, religious faith, herbal knowledge. Experience passed from one generation to the next, and a deep belief that the heavens and the earth were connected in ways people were only beginning to understand. As darkness slowly settles over the village, Thomas walks home with one less tooth and a sore jaw, clutching the small cloth wrapped around his mouth. Far away, another family kneels in prayer beside a candle. A healer carefully dries fresh herbs for tomorrow's patients. Above them all, countless stars begin to appear across the quiet medieval sky. For the people below, those distant lights were more than beautiful. They were part of the great mystery of life itself. And in a world where so much remained unknown, medicine was never only about curing disease. It was about finding comfort in knowledge, strength in tradition, and hope wherever it could be found. As night settles gently over the village, the last traces of daylight fade behind the distant hills. Warm light flickers from a handful of cottage windows, and the cool evening air carries the comforting scent of wood smoke drifting slowly across the quiet streets. By now, you may have noticed something surprising. Many of the ideas we have about medieval medicine are only partly true. It is easy to imagine medieval physicians as people who knew almost nothing about the human body. Popular stories often paint them as careless men experimenting blindly, with little understanding of sickness or healing. But history tells a gentler and far more interesting story. The physicians of medieval Europe did not possess microscopes. They could not see bacteria, viruses, or the countless tiny organisms that modern science has revealed. They had no knowledge of DNA, no laboratory tests, and no medical imaging. Yet they observed their patients with remarkable patience. They watched breathing. They examined skin color. They listened carefully to descriptions of pain. They felt the pulse, studied changes in appetite, and noted how illnesses progressed from one day to the next. Many even kept handwritten notes so they could compare one patient's condition with another. Their explanations were often incorrect. Their observations, however, were frequently careful and sincere. Like every doctor throughout history, they wanted their patients to recover. Another common belief is that every medieval treatment was painful or completely useless. Certainly, some procedures caused terrible discomfort. Bloodletting weakened many patients. Tooth extractions could be agonizing. Some medicines did far more harm than good, yet not every remedy belonged in that category. Herbal medicine, developed through generations of experience, occasionally proved surprisingly effective. Honey helped protect certain wounds from infection. Willow bark eased pain and fever long before scientists discovered the compound that would eventually inspire aspirin. Mint soothed upset stomachs. Garlic contained natural substances that slowed the growth of some harmful microbes. The people using these remedies did not understand why they worked. They simply noticed that sometimes they did. That quiet process of observation is how much of human knowledge has always grown. Another misunderstanding is perhaps the easiest to make. It is tempting to look backward and imagine medieval people as foolish. After all, they believed ideas that sound strange today. They trusted astrology. They carried charms. They accepted treatments that modern medicine would never recommend. But then, imagine something for a moment. Imagine waking tomorrow to discover that every medical textbook has disappeared. Every hospital has closed. Every laboratory has fallen silent. Every modern medicine has vanished. No antibiotics, no vaccines, no X-rays, no MRI scanners, no internet filled with medical information. How long would it take any of us to rediscover everything we currently know? Years, generations, perhaps even centuries. Knowledge does not appear all at once. It is built slowly, one careful observation after another. That is exactly what medieval physicians were trying to do. They were asking questions, making comparisons, recording experiences, learning from successes, learning even more from failures. They were not standing still. They were taking the next small step along a very long road. Medicine itself never stopped evolving. One of the quiet heroes of that journey was the medieval monastery. Behind peaceful stone walls, monks copied ancient Greek, Roman, and Arabic medical texts by hand, page after page, year after year. Without printing presses, every book required months of patient work. Each carefully written manuscript preserved knowledge that might otherwise have disappeared forever. Some monasteries created libraries unlike any others in Europe. Others cultivated medicinal gardens, growing herbs that served nearby villages for generations. When later scholars of the Renaissance began expanding medical knowledge, many of the books they studied had survived because medieval monks had protected them through centuries of uncertainty. Progress is rarely dramatic. Most often, it happens quietly. One page copied, one herb planted, one patient observed, one lesson remembered. As the evening grows later, the village becomes wonderfully still. The blacksmith's hammer has fallen silent. The marketplace is empty. Even the farm animals have settled into sleep. Inside the little cottage, the candles burn lower now, their gentle flames dancing softly with each passing breeze. The healer has long since returned home. Carrying an empty satchel and hopping tomorrow's patients will fare a little better than today's. Your family speaks only in whispers. The fire has faded into glowing red embers that release a comforting warmth into the quiet room. Outside, the stars shine brightly above the rooftops, just as they have for countless generations. Some of the treatments we explored tonight truly helped. Some caused unnecessary suffering. Many probably changed very little at all. Yet every attempt, every careful observation, every difficult mistake added another small piece to humanity's understanding of health and illness. No single discovery transformed medicine overnight. Instead, progress arrived patiently, generation after generation. Teacher after student, parent after child, One remedy, one question, one discovery, one patient at a time. And somewhere in those peaceful medieval villages, beneath the same stars we still see today, ordinary people wished for the very same things we wish for now. A little less pain, a little more comfort, good health for the people they loved, and the simple blessing of waking to another quiet morning. As our journey gently comes to its end, the village has fallen completely asleep. The fires have grown dim. The streets are empty. Only the soft whisper of the evening wind moves between the old wooden cottages. Thank you for joining tonight's journey through history. May your evening be peaceful, your dreams be gentle, and your sleep come easily. Sleep well. And I'll see you in the next chapter of history.